We're here in Haverhill, Massachusetts, not too far from Boston. Behind me is a notable place, certainly in Baptist history, the First Baptist Church of Haverhill, founded in 1765 by Reverend Hezekiah Smith. Hezekiah Smith started this church at the age of 28 and pastored it for 40 years till the year that he died at the age of 68. 40 faithful years here pastoring. He was born in Long Island, is actually ordained down in Charleston, South Carolina, but quickly made his way back up here to New England. During his 40 years, he labored faithfully among his flock, but the Lord also laid something on his heart that had quite a lasting effect. For one, he, along with his college classmate and friend James Manning, as well as Isaac Backus, labored constantly for religious freedom in Massachusetts. Another thing that the Lord laid on his heart was to reproduce the First Baptist Church of Haverhill into other Baptist churches as well. So his custom as a tireless worker and labor for the Lord was to take 2 or 3 men with him and go off on short preaching tours in other parts of New England, particularly New Hampshire, Maine, and other parts of Massachusetts. And as they would go, they would often see souls saved or even meet others who had the same belief and practice, and in time assisted those small groups of believers into establishing churches. There are a number of churches throughout the New England area that were planted out of this First Baptist Church here in Haverhill during that 40-year ministry of Hezekiah Smith. One of his prayers in his life was that he would not outlive his usefulness. And the Lord answered that prayer for him. He preached his last sermon from the text, John 12:24, "Except a corn of wheat fall in the ground and die, it abides alone." And so after he preached that message, soon afterwards, he was struck with paralysis, and then just within a few days passed away at the age of 68. 40 faithful years, not just pastoring this church, but also during the Revolutionary War, he was called out to be one of the chaplains for George Washington, with whom he made an acquaintance. There were several Baptist pastors that were fighting chaplains during the Revolutionary War, but as soon as the war was done, he got right back to his church that he so loved. This church building here was built about 100 years after the ministry of Hezekiah Smith in the late 1800s, but we look back to a man that saw not just being faithful at his own congregation, and they were greatly blessed by him, standing for religious liberty throughout the state of Massachusetts, willing to fight during the Revolutionary War, but also a heart desire to see other like-minded churches planted really throughout the New England area. It is said that it is really difficult to explain the great influence that the First Baptist Church of Haverhill and their church planting efforts had on church plants and the gospel being spread throughout New England in those days, both before and after the Revolutionary War. We're grateful for the memory of Hezekiah Smith. We're also grateful for the similar spirit that has taken that history and applied it today. So it's not just history for history's sake, but we're grateful to have recently been with a couple friends that are taking up that same spirit, and others in the New England area that understand that it's great to have history, but living it out and pressing forward in the Lord's work today in a similarly difficult society is the Lord's call, and even seeking to plant churches again in the same area that has a great history of church planting, but taking history and applying it and using it in the life today. When Adoniram Judson himself became a Baptist on the way to Burma and needed Baptist churches to support him, one of the very first churches to jump on board was the First Baptist Church of Haverhill, willing to support Judson and many other Baptist missionaries through that movement. So great history here in Haverhill, Massachusetts at the First Baptist Church. Hezekiah Smith and others the Lord brought into his life.